Number 10. The Riddle House in Palm Beach County was originally a funeral parlor. In the 1920s, the house became privately owned by Carl Riddle. One of Riddle's former employees committed suicide by hanging himself in the attic of the house. Joseph hated men and attacked men who would enter the attic, and men are no longer allowed in the attic. Other places in the house are haunted as well, as frequent furniture will be moved around. Number 9. The northern part of Summit County in Ohio. There is a name eerily called Helltown. In the 1970s, Helltown was the site of a government buyout and subsequent mass eviction of the citizens. The houses were intended to be torn down and the land used as a national park, but the plans never happened. Whether based on a kernel of truth or cooked up in the head of visitors, the persistent legends of Helltown adds to the creep factor. The Stanford Road drops off and is immediately followed by a dead end, and is named the End of the World. If you get stuck at the dead end for too long, according to ghost story enthusiasts, you may meet your end at the hands of many members of the endless parade of freaks patrolling the woods. Satanist clan members, Satanists, and escaped mental patients are caused by the alleged chemical spill, and if you stray from the roads, you may find Boston Cemetery, home to a ghostly man. Number 8. Stull, Kansas is a tiny town in Douglas County. The population of Stull is approximately 20 people, but the quaint village fool you. A darker side lurks behind the bushes and in the shadows. In the early 20th century, a father finished burning a field, found the charred corpse of his young son. The second incident to occur was a young man went missing and was later found hanging from a tree. As far as the legend go, the infamous cemetery is where you will find your fill of supernatural lore. Rumors exist stating that Stull Cemetery is one of the 7 gateways to hell. While the old church is now demolished, many attempt to sneak in at night for a peek at the unsavory going on. But be warned, the police patrol heavily, especially at Halloween and the spring equinox. The place is supposedly to be so unholy, in fact, that some claim John Paul II refused to allow his plane to fly over eastern Kansas on his way to an appearance in Colorado. Number 7. The Ridges. Originally known as the Athens Lunatic Asylum, the Ridges was renamed after the state of Ohio acquired the property. The hospital saw hundreds of lobotomies, and the nearby Ohio University, which now owns most of the property on which the Ridges is located, is said to be heavily haunted. The most famous story, however, is that of a 50-year-old female patient who ran away and was missing for 4 weeks. She was found dead in an unused ward. She had taken off all her clothes, neatly folded them, and laid down in the cold concrete where she subsequently died. Through the combination of decomposition and sun exposure, her corpse left a permanent stain on the floor, which is still visible today. Her spirit is now said to be haunting the abandoned ward. Number 6. Humberstone and Lenora. In 1872, the town was founded salt pier mine, and business boomed. However, after several heavy blows, including the Great Depression, the business declined and then collapsed in 1958. The town of Humberstone and its surrounding towns were abandoned by 1960. The treatment of workers in both towns bordered on slavery, and now the towns are left standing abandoned. It is rumored that the dead of Lenora Cemetery rises at night and walk around the town. Ghostly images frequently show up in the photographs of Humberstone. These towns are so terrifying that residents of the nearby towns refuse to enter them. The former residents never left and can be seen walking around, and children have been heard playing, regardless of whether its occupants actually walk at night. It contains open graves where the bodies are fully exposed, leaving you to wonder why. Is it ghosts or is it grave robbers? Number 5. Byberry Mental Asylum. The Philadelphia State Hospital, simply known as Byberry, was the poster image for patient mistreatment. The hospital was founded in 1907 and exceeded its patient limit quickly, maxing out at over 7,000 in 1960. It housed everything from the mentally challenged to the criminally insane. Due to its conditions and subhuman treatment of patients, the hospital was closed and abandoned in 1990. It has since become a nuisance for the neighborhood, as it was a breeding ground for vandals and urban explorers. The terrifying aspect of the location isn't so much its haunting or unsavory characteristics. The terror comes from the fact of how the hospital was run. Human excrement lined the hallways where many patients slept. The staff was abusive and frequently exploited and harassed the patients. One patient had a tooth pulled without Novocaine, while others killed and dismembered a female patient. Although the killer, Charles Gabriel, is never found, her teeth were found being played with by another patient. Number 4. Leap Castle. While the Irish Castle is perhaps the most popular location featured on this list, it is worth recapping the long and often gruesome history. The castle is rumored to be haunted by a vast majority of spirits, including a violent beast known as the Elemental. It is most recognizable by the accompanying smell of rotten flesh and sulfur. While renovating the castle, workers discovered a dungeon accessible only through a ceiling hatch, into which prisoners are thrown, then forgotten to die. This dungeon contained 3 cartloads of human remains and was filled with spikes to impale those thrown to its depths. Number 3. Shades of Death Road. This New Jersey road winds through 7 miles of countryside. While the explanation for this unusual name has been lost, there's many theories. Some say that murderous highwaymen would rob and kill those along the road. Others say the reason was because of violent retaliations by the locals against the very same highwaymen, resulting in their lynched corpse being hung up as warning. Some attribute it to 3 murders that occurred during the 20s and 30s. The first saw a robber beating his victim over the head with tire iron. The second saw a woman decapitate her husband and bury the head and body in separate sides of the road. Third consisted of a poor man being shot and buried in a mud pile. Some attribute it to the massive amount of fatal car crashes, while others consider it fault of the vicious wildcats by the nearby swamp. The ghosts of the highwayman victims roam the area, and they are most frequent in the abandoned cabin across the lake, is home to thick fog and apparitions.
Number 2. The Island of the Dolls, Mexico. The island of Dolls, situated in Mexico, contains the forest where the trees originate with doll heads. It becomes a natural process that the doll's heads originate from the shrubs and the roots of the trees. It is said that a little girl died on the island and her body was found by a nearby canal. It is her soul which creates these doll heads naturally from the trees, and even when one cuts such trees, the new trees bring the same doll heads.
Number 1. The Mines of Paris. The seemingly infinite tunnels that run below the streets of Paris that are now unkept and unpatrolled. As far as legends go, ancient cults and creatures patrol the depth. Spirits dwell in the infinite shadow, and if one wanders deep enough and survives, they may even enter Hades itself. As far as reality goes, those legends can take a back seat. The tunnel stretches for close to 600 kilometers throughout the underground, and most of them are unmapped. Saying it is easy to get lost is an understatement. It is nearly impossible not to get lost. Many parts of the catacombs are hundreds of feet below street level. Some hallways are so narrow you have to crawl through them. There are a number of holes that drop hundreds of feet and manholes that are unreachable. The infinite underground maze absorbs sound and mutes it, making it unlikely you will hear somebody yelling for help, even if they are not far away, or worse, making it unlikely somebody will hear you. Thousands of human bones litter the tunnels due to overcrowding in many Paris cemeteries. If you have claustrophobia, you will want to avoid the mines at all costs. If you don't have claustrophobia, you probably will after a trip through the mines. Bring plenty of batteries, backup flashlights, and clean water, a friend, and say a prayer before entering the mines. You will need them all.